everybody. I want to do a quick video about how to become an electrician, I guess. I think there's a lot of people that are curious, and there's different states have many different requirements. Some have little to none, and some, like California, for instance, have very stringent bylaws for becoming an electrician, saying that, for instance, that you cannot perform any electrical work unless you've been accepted into an apprenticeship program and have physically received your electrical trainee card. So it varies by state, and this isn't going to be like a completely comprehensive video going through every state or anything like that, but I just wanted to kind of tell you my experience as someone who did electrical work in Arizona, California, and Nevada. So in the states, and then I have a little bit of insight into Maine. So I started my electrical career in Arizona, in IBW 640 out there in Phoenix, and I got in at a weird time. I submitted my application before a deadline. Be sure that if you're going the route of an apprenticeship through the union, that you make sure you check deadlines, because a lot of times you're the only one who cares to even check those things. So, and you won't really be alerted if you miss them, or maybe even told sometimes if there was a deadline. So you have to do a lot of digging. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're going the route of the union apprenticeship. But my experience was that I was during 2020, I applied, and it was sort of up in the air, and that sort of gave me an interesting opportunity to get in, where I didn't even actually need to test in. A lot of apprenticeships with the union will require you to do basically the equivalent of what colleges do, where they have you do, I forget what it's called, just basically an aptitude test. Like a lot of community colleges will make you do an aptitude test, and that places you with what classes you can take. And if you get above a certain score with the apprenticeship's aptitude test, basically, then you stand a better chance of getting chosen in that, I forget what they call it, in that selection period. That's not what they call it, but it's something similar to that. So usually you want to score 90, if not better. I think I've heard someone say 80, but with how competitive this stuff is getting, you want to score as highly as possible. And just as a reference, those tests, there's a lot of prep courses online that I think if someone is worried about it, it's worth going that route. But yeah, so I didn't actually have to take the test, so I got in with the union apprenticeship, and then that sounds a little bit like a quick process, but it was about, I think I applied in like February of like 2020, and then I think I got so I got my interview. I know that they actually canceled interviews at the time because of COVID, but I think the process typically goes like this. You'll apply through the website platform, and in the case of California, they have times when you can apply, and also Arizona, and you can't just apply at any times. They'll like open it up for a certain period of time, and you have to be within that time that you file for your application. So once you do your application, typically you'll have to then wait for your interview, and then once you get I forgot the steps. It's been a while, but basically it's going to be like, it's going to take about a year, if that, or if not more. It'll be, you do your test, hopefully you hit the deadline. At that time, you can bring in prior work experience, but you have to bring in that prior work experience at that application date, because sometimes they won't accept it. So if you are someone who is trying to get in the union and you just like barely starting out, and you see like the opportunities for the construction industry, non-union and you're not really happy with it and you want to go that route, I'd really recommend that you print out all your W-2s or get a letter from a foreman or something that shows your work hours. A W-2 would probably be the best, but if you're like really, really, really brand new, you know, you may not have that. It might be your first year or whatever, but if you want to add that, it can help you with either increasing your wage out the gate or potentially starting you at a higher year. I don't know if that's actually the case. I've personally never experienced that, but at the very least, you know, you won't start out so low on the pay scale. So just to reiterate, sorry if this is completely all over the place, but you're going to do your application, you're going to get your tests, and then an interview, and then hopefully you'll get an email saying that you've been accepted, and after that you get orientation, and then you get placed with a contractor. That's typically the way that it'll go. And you can expect in states that aren't as population dense for maybe about a year, it's probably going to be increasing because the population is only going up. And it was difficult in my case, and I was trying to transfer my apprenticeship to San Diego. I heard that the ABC program had about a 3-year wait if you didn't have a contractor backing you already. So yeah, that's like a frame of reference. And in the case of San Diego, I think I scored decently. I think I hit like an 89 or something, and I wasn't even considered in that round. And if you aren't considered in that pool of applicants, they might have a purging system, so you have to reapply. So that's just like something to be aware of, is that I think I got an email like, I don't even know, I think like 6 months ago from the San Diego's apprenticeship saying like, hey, you were not chosen in this round. And I'm like, dude, it's been 2 years. I'm not even, like, I took my journeyman test in Las Vegas and passed, and I, don't even think I need to do that anymore. But yeah, so so that's the case of the union. And then in the case of the ABC apprenticeship, I have not gone that route, but the ABC apprenticeship does, kind of similar to the union, make you stay for the duration of your schooling. So that's like a 4 or 5 year period. I think in California it's 5. And in the union, you can't quit your employer, really. You can only really get laid off while you're an indentured apprentice. So that's the same way, I think, as well for the ABC. Like I said, I haven't gone through it, but you're basically got to buckle down for about 5 years. Otherwise, you might have your school be like void. So if you're going to plan on going through the apprenticeships that are available, just keep that in mind, is that you kind of have to buckle down for like a 4 to 5 year period. But yeah, so that's kind of like an introduction in that sense. So again, in my experience, I went to San Diego about 2 years into my apprenticeship, and I couldn't transfer it. So if you are someone who's looking to transfer, I tried the transfer from Phoenix to San Diego's JATC, and or the Journeyman Apprenticeship Training Center that they have for San Diego. And they said, we don't really accept applicants who are not yet well into their 3rd year. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. As something, if life strikes and you need to move, or prices are crazy and you need to get out, like, that's something to keep in mind, is that you at the very least need to buckle down for 3 years. And even then, they don't really want to encourage that behavior. So you got to have some special case, more than likely, for it to even be applicable. Otherwise, they might void all that. So in the case of Nevada, for instance, it just recently changed, I believe in June of 2025, that you have to apply for your journeyman card, you need to have 4,000 hours card, which is just about 1 year of school, 1 year of working a 40-hour work week. And some people might be able to even hit that earlier within their first year. So just as a frame of reference, it might be smart for you just to take your journeyman test, because if your end goal, for instance, is to be a contractor, with the way that the structure is being told to a lot of people, it says that, you go do your school for 4 years, you become a journeyman, and then you're a journeyman, and apparently that's like the pearly gates and you've made it. But in actuality, in the case of, for instance, Las Vegas, you need 4 years as a foreman or 4 years as a Clark County journeyman to apply for your contractor's license, which means if you didn't take your journeyman tests when you had 4,000 hours, that you might be on the roster waiting on the bench for another 4 years before you can realistically get your contractor's license, which kind of sucks. So look at your contractor's board, look at the C11 license or whatever the electrical license is in your area. Keep that in mind when framing out your years, because you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're like, oh, so I could have done this earlier. Like, I didn't have to abide by this apprenticeship's structure to do what in the eyes of the city is what you need to get your ducks in a row to become self-employed. So that's just something to consider. In the case of Arizona, the contractors board doesn't actually require you to have your journeyman's license for 4 years. You just need 4 years experience. So, and then you need to pass the state statutes test and also the appropriate test for the contractor's license that you're seeking, whether that be residential, commercial, or a residential electrical, or residential and commercial electrical. So just keep that in mind, because that could be a huge setback for you if you don't have that in mind. So in the case of California, for instance, they require that you have a trainee card. So technically, in order to do that, you need a trainee card to even get into electrical. That's not uniformly enforced. There's a lot of smaller residential contractors that you can get with that do not abide by that. There's also solar contractors that don't consider you an electrical worker. They consider you an installer, and they think that that's a loophole. Whether that's true or not, that is something that I've seen in the industry. So that might be an in that you could get. If you wanted to start, you could say you could start in a solar company. They're always hiring. They have crazy turnaround. They don't have an apprenticeship or any rigidity, in my opinion, is common with electrical companies. At least there's somewhat rigidity to the structure of it. But in solar, I've hired guys that don't even know. They don't know how a breaker works, or how what a ground even is. They don't know anything really. A lot of solar is plug and play. So that's an entrance way that you could get into electrical. So if you live in a state where you don't need a crazy pathway to get into the industry and you don't know anybody or anything like that, I would maybe say consider solar, because it's an interesting way to get in. It's not the most mentally rewarding work. It does require you to do layout and find rafters and make sure you're hitting the rafters when you drill for the supports for the solar mounts and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's just it very quickly makes you feel like you're just an installer and you're not like anyone who's doing anything that requires critical thinking. So that's just an aspect of one way that I think that you could get into the electrical industry if you don't have a shot already set up for yourself. With that said, I have been working at a contractor who uses the ABC program, and they've hired guys who are absolutely green, and they go and they get in and they work with the company for a while, and then they get an offer after about a year. Some people get in like crazy fast, and they get in with the ABC, and then they start their whole thing. But it's not impossible as an idea that especially with large commercial businesses, which you might think you stand no chance at getting in with, that those do hire like brand new, like green guys, like no experience whatsoever. They just want, like, they have a need for prefabrication. So if you want to start in the electrical industry, I think that it's not a bad idea that if you don't have, like, know anybody in the industry, or you don't, like, you didn't get in with the union or whatever, there's a long wait list. Like, it's not uncommon that these contractors that have like high bid limits will have an opening, and they want guys to get in with the company. Like, there's a bunch of guys that are just prefabbing at the shop. They're employed, they're getting into electrical, they're just prefabbing. They're like working with, like, building racks, or like getting rigid 90s and putting FAs on them, like things like that. Like, that's, and like cleaning around the shop and things like that. So like, that's not uncommon as a pathway to get a foot in the door. As a general note, I should also say that in my experience, having kind of gone off the deep end with just trying to find employment, and kind of taking some really bad choices and some a lot better ones, I will say that if you're looking to have a less stress-free, a more stress-free environment to work in, go and apply to a contractor that has a bid limit of like at least like 10 million. Like, if you go with anything less, you're going to deal with either, and this is definitely not 100% across the board rule, but like, layoffs are going to be potentially more common. You're going to have like no structure. It's just like random cowboy guys who are just like, you know, they think they're great at electrical, but do they really know a whole lot? You're not really sure. But yeah, I would say like 25 million bid limit is where you should aim to be, because otherwise you deal with people who are like, can kind of take swipes at like big dog jobs, but not really have like the coordination or like structure to support people, and also have like a good work culture where like they respect, or at least they have like some format in place where at least there's like an HR, and like there's like someone you can go to talk to, and someone who's not like just absolutely wild, that's your point of contact. So I would say try to get into a company that has at least 25 million for a bid limit, and you can check that on their website, and also just look at the kind of jobs that they're getting before you apply. But that is probably where you should start if you don't have any of those other opportunities. And then yeah, so let me know if you guys found this interesting, and I don't think I touched on everything that I want to talk about, but I think we covered a decent amount of things. So let me know if there's anything else you want to hear about this.